Because if Hyderabad was known when I was not a Hyderabadi, was for its impact in pharmaceutical industry. And till date, it has its mark very, very prominent, not only in India, but across the world. And that's the discussion we are going to have with two stalwarts from the pharma industry of the city. And the discussion will be moderated by Deepanwita Chattopadhyay. Let me tell you a little bit about Deepanwita. Deepanwita is very, very well known to all those who are in life sciences because she was the first one to develop India's first life sciences research park in Hyderabad, the IKP Knowledge Park. And she has supported thousands of startups and entrepreneurs through it. With various awards to her name, recognizing her work in biotech and her role of the chairperson and MD of IKP, she is absolutely the fitting person to moderate this discussion. Deepanwita, over to you from here.
So thank you. So Datta said, why don't you go up the stage? So, and I am here. You know, today we have two most enterprising people from the pharmaceutical industry with us, and I'd love to invite Mr. Prasad. So why don't you come in, and Mr. Anand Kumar, please come in. And while they sit down, what I will do is, I will just, in case you don't know, I'm sure all of you know, Mr. Prasad, he's the co-chairman and managing director of Dr. Reddy's, the second largest pharmaceutical company in India by revenue, and ranked first in the pharma industry in terms of R&D intensity. So I think if you're talking of innovation, we're talking of Dr. Reddy's because R&D intensity wise in 2024, it was ranked first in India. And also number of employees with PhD. This is a fantastic data point that I could gather, fantastic. And Dr. Anand Kumar, Managing Director of Indian Immunologicals, the largest veterinary vaccine company in the country and the third largest human vaccine company in India. So with that, let me say, I'm so excited. And I'm so used to standing and moderating sessions, and Somdatta asked me to sit down and do it. Okay, I will do that, Somdatta. So let's start with Mr. Prasad. You know,
you can call me Prasad.
I'll call you. Of course. So, you know, both of you being leaders of the pharma industry, everyone knows you. I would love to know, first of all, what DRL has done differently for our ecosystem. This is our city. You're from the city right from the beginning. I keep hearing mid-80s. And we knew Dr. Ajay Reddy. We are so proud of your company. And I know that, I've asked some people, because I don't want to read from whatever is written there. They said he's a mentor of mentors. I want to hear how did this pharma industry come up with the help of DRL.
This is not on, is it? Can you hear me? Yeah, great. Firstly, I must say that you are also a very important aspect of the pharma ecosystem.
Thank you.
You created India's first science park. You, with the help of Mr. Wagul and Mr. Dr. Ganguly, I remember the early days with Mr. Naidu was his first term or second term. He initiated this whole thing. So I don't want to take too much of the credit. A lot of people contributed to the building up of the ecosystem here. But let me say that Dr. Reddy's was successful because of its patient centricity, purpose-driven work, and the intent to build a great organization and not really chase profits as much. Profits were important, but there was an outcome of what we did and what we did well. So as you all know, Dr. Reddy's was founded by Dr. Anand Reddy, who was trained at IDPL. So IDPL was the original pharma startup in India, in Hyderabad. And they, with the help of the Russian technologies, built a synthesis part.
Yes.
Originally, it was called actually Synthetic Drugs Limited. Then they changed it to Indian Drugs Private and Pharmaceuticals Limited. But the whole synthesis of drugs started there in India. And then, of course, some MNCs had to do some work to fulfill their ratio norms, they used to call it at that time. If you sold something in the finished dosage, you had to make some active ingredients.
Okay.
But, Dr. Reddy was a scientist first and then an entrepreneur.
Yes.
So he combined his scientific instincts and the intent to do something very significant, and had a trail of startups which didn't really scale up for one reason or the other. Then he founded Dr. Reddy's in '84 and built an API business. And from then on, we constantly evolved from being an API company to a finished dosage, global generics, drug discovery, biosimilars, and now cell and gene therapies. So it's been a continuous journey of evolution. And as we did this, we also laid the foundations of the organization on 3 strong pillars. One is science and technology, and Balu was one of our board members in one of our companies. The second one was people, having progressive people practices, building leadership, building leaders. The third one is governance. Governance just not at the board level, but across the organization, taking decisions in a transparent way, involving people, delegating and empowering them and all of that. So these were the 3 pillars which built Dr. Reddy's. And as we did this, many of our alumni became ambitious, started companies outside, became very, very successful, and we are very proud of them. At last count, I think we had at least 15 entrepreneurs who, businesses with hundreds of crores. And we had about 20 CEOs who worked at Dr. Reddy's and many more CXOs. Yes. So we are very proud of all this, especially our people who went out and became very, very successful. With respect to the circumstances they left, they all were very successful, and we have continuing relationships with them. We buy from them, they buy from us. So it's a very nice ecosystem that has evolved in Hyderabad. Hyderabad has been tremendously successful thanks to efforts from all of you. I think it represents 30% of the Indian pharmaceutical industry.
Yes.
And number 1 in APIs. About half the API exports come from Hyderabad. So in many ways, I think Hyderabad rightfully should be proud of the industry that we all created.
We are actually very proud of what you've been able to build. We keep talking, and I have to tell you, in Knowledge Park, there are so many companies, and most of the CEOs or CXOs I talk to, they say sometime or the other they work with the amount of Dr. Reddy's, they can't forget. Once you are there, you are there. So that's the training that you imparted. That's the kind of people building effort and ecosystem building effort. Now I turn to Dr. Anand Kumar. What's the genesis of Indian Immunologicals? How did you move from veterinary vaccine to human vaccine, and how did you become so successful in both?
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. First and foremost, happy Republic Day, and thanks for the introduction, Deepanwita. Actually, we are an entity which was created by a visionary leader. We belong to the National Dairy Development Board. I don't know how many of you know this. So very early, India was actually deficient in milk production. So there was a desire to increase milk production in the country, and today we are the largest producer of milk in the world. So our founding fathers realized very early that if you have to increase milk production in the country, then you have to contain diseases. So foot and mouth disease is the one that causes the highest economic burden in our country. So in 1982, Indian Immunologicals Limited was established, and the cost of foot and mouth disease vaccine in 1982 was 14 rupees 50 paise, sold by a multinational company. So India has the largest livestock population in the world, and if you have to buy it 14 rupees 50 paise, the government has to spend a lot of money. So there was a desire to develop vaccines within the country. manufacture within the country. So that's the genesis, and we had a tie-up with the Wellcome Foundation in the UK, and we established our first unit in Gachibowli, which was once outskirts of Hyderabad. And so
Oh, it's prime real estate.
prime real estate, and I'm happy to say that we have about 218 acres of land there. So from very humble beginnings, we introduced the first foot and mouth disease vaccine in 1982 for 3 rupees 50 paise, compared to 1450 which was available at that time. Now 40 years have gone, and can you all guess what would be the price of foot and mouth disease vaccine that we sell to the government today? That time the price of milk per litre was 7 rupees, and the cost of FMD vaccine was 14 rupees 50 paise, sold by a multinational company. Today, we sell the vaccine to the government at 18 rupees 50 paise, and the cost of milk, you can guess is. So, what we have done is we have significantly contributed to the health of animals in the country. And from one vaccine we started developing, you cannot survive as a one vaccine company, right? So through our own internal R&D and with collaborations with many institutes, we started developing many vaccines for livestock. Then we came into the companion animal segment, and we are the only producer of vaccine in India today for the companion animal segment. And then we now make multiple vaccines for multiple species. And then in 1998, we were making at the time safer vaccine for rabies for dogs than what was available for human beings at the time. So Ministry of Health and Family Welfare requested if we could make again a safe vaccine for humans. So most of you, the older ones, would remember that earlier days, if you're bitten by a rabid dog, then pretty much you would need to take 14 for 14 days. And actually, it was much more painful than the bite itself in some cases. So again, there was a multinational company selling rabies vaccine for humans, a purified rabies vaccine for humans at 100 rupees a dose, and which again was not affordable by many in the country. And then, based on the request, we then entered into the human space. We were the first to produce a purified virocell rabies vaccine for humans. And at that time, many wondered how would a veterinary vaccine company make a human vaccine. So today I am happy to share that we are the largest producer of human rabies vaccine in the world.
Yes.
So from one rabies vaccine, we started developing many vaccines for the human in the human segment, and today we are the largest supplier, one of the largest suppliers of vaccines to Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So again, as I said, in terms of how we are different is on the business side, we operate like a very professional business. Though we are not a listed company, we operate with all the governance and compliance and everything. We operate like a business, like a listed company. But we have another side. We also try to balance between making money and then doing social good. So whether it relates to our pricing or what we do with the profits, it's entirely left up to us. So that's how we are different to other.
So wonderful to hear that, this is what perseverance is, this is how you build companies. If there are startups in this crowd, you have to learn from what these stalwarts have done. Since you talk of pricing, can I ask you a question, a follow-on question on pricing? There's always a concern of rising prices for medicines. What is your take on that? For both of you, but I'll start with Dr. Kumar.
As I told you in the introduction itself, how we have priced products which are very, very affordable to... actually pricing as a subject is irrelevant to India. Because nowhere in the world you will get medicines as cost effective as what you get in India. I'm sure all of you who travel to US along with the Avaka in equal weight to take medicines also from India if you are going there for 2 days. So pricing is, I'll just narrate some examples. How India is much better placed than any other country in the developing world. For example, we supply, majority of our supplies of vaccines goes to the government.
Yeah.
Between day of birth and till the child achieves 1 year old, 17 doses of vaccines are provided by the government free of cost.
Yes, I agree.
Which protect a child from 13 diseases. And can you believe how much the government buys these vaccines for? 1,500 rupees. Of these, 3 vaccines alone contribute to 600 rupees. So imagine what would be the price of just these other. So the same thing if you went to a private clinic, you will pay much, much more. But what I'm talking is how much the government buys these vaccines for. So I think in terms of pricing, we are the most economical. We have priced the products in such a manner, whether it be animal health or human health, that it's affordable to both.
So what about you?
So I think he's covered most of the topic, but let me just say this. There is no other place in the world where medicines are available at lower cost than India, including Africa, including Bangladesh, whichever country you take. Indian prices are lower. So it's medicines are expensive because it's difficult to develop them, difficult to manufacture them, and keep them at a standard of quality which is safe for everybody and efficacious. And hence, some of them will be expensive, and some will be lower cost. Just because a medicine is expensive, it doesn't mean the company is profiteering from it. But that's the cost of developing and manufacturing it. So I know there's a lot of political thing about price control, high prices and all that. But, if you just even leave it to the market forces, Indian prices will be very low. And not only that, India has contributed to global deflation of prices of generic pharmaceuticals and APIs in the world. India and China, uniquely India in terms of the finished products. Everywhere from Russia to US to Europe to South America, the prices get deflated because of Indian competition. So it's competition which drives the prices down. And certainly I think we should credit the industry for having brought the prices of pharmaceuticals down across the world.
So
Today,
one needs to really remember this.
The US is dependent on Indian product.
Yes.
Nearly 20% of the prescriptions are for Indian products. And if we didn't supply, there would be shortages there.
Yes.
So there's a drug price control order, and we have the National Pharma Pricing Authority, which determines what the price of a drug in India should be. And there's a national list of essential medicines. So in this, which constitute nearly about 380 or so medicines which are essential, which also includes vaccines. So we have no say in pricing. What the government fixes, then we need to adjust our manufacturing operations in such a manner that we still make a margin out of the price.
But even those which are not in the NLM list are priced pretty low compared to anywhere else in the world. So I think the topic of high prices is really false.
Yeah, so that's something that I think is a great take-home message for everyone. So, now you see technology everywhere. There's emerging technology. How are you really looking at the pharmaceutical industry with AI and other technologies coming up? And is there a move towards a much more technology-oriented company? Where is the future of the pharma industry here?
You want me to go or?
You.
Okay. So I think technology is an essential part of our industry. Right from in the 80s when we started, technology was the most important aspect of making a product, making it at a sufficiently high quality, robust manufacturing processes, all of those. But that's technology in a broad sense, scientific technology, engineering, process engineering, this kind of thing. That will always be important. AI will help, actually multiply that capability in a much faster way and achieve results which probably wouldn't have been possible in the past. But overall, you still need the basic sciences. If you don't have the basic skill in biology, chemistry, pharmacology, and then just AI cannot create drugs. AI can help accelerate all the work that we do. It can also make us much more efficient. And it can also find insights which we, as a human mind, we couldn't achieve in a normal way. So to that extent, it's a force multiplier. But AI alone, I think it's a little hyped up in this way. As of now, we use it, but we use it to make our processes more efficient, find better yielding processes, also design the drugs using algorithms.
Yes.
Yeah, now that Google has published all protein structures, the structural information is used to design drugs, and AI helps there.
Fantastic. What is your take on this, Kumar?
Oh, no establishment or entity can survive if it doesn't adapt technology. We at IL, we are not shy of adapting any new technology that comes our way, and we have employed a lot of these technologies. I can tell you, there used to be, to pack every batch of rabies vaccine, it would take 50 people manually, 5 days of labor, and we just bought 4 robots from Italy, and the whole thing is done in 8 hours. So there are many examples of how we as a company have used technology otherwise, if you don't use technology, we just cannot keep the prices the same. Unless you employ modern technologies that can reduce waste, increase yield, there's no way that you could price these products at such a low price. Also, recently, post-COVID, there's been some reluctance in people joining as a medical rep in a company. Because we depend on medical reps for most of our sales, because they are our connect between doctors and. But post-COVID, because the families generally they don't want a person going into multiple clinics. So what we did is through artificial intelligence, we created digital medical representatives, which we have created 20 of them, which directly interact with the doctors. And they have been generating business for us, because in the long term we see that the number of people wanting to get into the medical representative job would decline. So again, there are many areas, as Mr. Prasad said, these are all everything now, whether it was 10 years ago, today now even Google search, which we all widely use, is also AI, but for some reason AI has become a very catchy phrase, and we see a lot of potential use of AI. For example, if there is a virus, and if we have to know, a virus comprises of many proteins, and if we have to determine which of these would effectively can be used as a vaccine candidate, as a subunit for using vaccines, then AI, based on similar virus patterns, the ability of each protein to develop elicit antibody response, then it gives us some indication as to, it reduces the variation and allows us to target one or two. And also, AI also helps, for example, in COVID, when COVID developed, we started getting many mutations. Now, there was a delta, there was an epsilon, so AI also, based on the data that has been accumulated for a particular virus, it can also help us predict which region in the virus is likely to mutate next. And based on that, vaccine companies also can prepare for those. There are many applications of AI, whether it be in the discovery part, whether in manufacturing, because today quality trends are continuously monitored in a manner that where anything failures, it helps us predict failures also. Yes. And supply chain, I don't need to tell, because it's widely helped companies in forecasting, in planning, and many activities.
Fantastic, thank you. So,
if you ask me, the greatest advances have happened where there's an intersection between the classical disciplines and AI.
Yes. So I think it has been embraced so well, and it's you who's going to use it for mankind. It's a technology, so how you use it is so important. We've also heard a lot about both of you in terms of your contribution, and my take is people may want to know who is G.V. Prasad, who is Dr. Anand Kumar, what is his passion, what are his interests, because you are ultimately a human being who has built such lovely companies. And what do you do? What's your interest? What is your responsibility to the society? Where do you find happiness? We'll go with Mr. Prasad for difficult question, but I thought...
Some very philosophical questions.
Yes.
I'm a normal person like everybody else here, but I had the opportunity to do something big by being part of an enterprise. And I credit that I was lucky in being part of Dr. Reddy's in the early phases, being given the mandate to build the company. And I've been a learner always, and that helped me a lot. And I joined the company at a young age of, I was 30 at that time. Used to be the youngest guy in the room, now I'm the oldest guy in the room. So my journey has been ups and downs and seen many phases of the company. In the initial phases, it was about just survival, uh, hoping to pay the bills at the end of the month, hoping to pay the salaries. That was how we started. Then we became financially viable, then we went global, and grew on from there, and then becoming a professional organization from being an entrepreneur-led organization became a priority. So hiring talent, having systems and policies which get the best out of people as well as attract the best of people to work for you. This is how the company evolved, and at each point, it just came naturally to me to see what change the company needed. And even today, I'm learning. I went to Anand's plant. I was struck by the simplicity of the organization as well as the efficiency with which it functions. And I went back and told my colleagues, you should go and see this plant, how frugally it is run, and with the intent of keeping costs low. So I think each experience I've built on and built the company in that way. Every phase of the organization brings in unique challenges. Today my challenge is not about size, we are already 33,000, 35,000 crores. The challenge is speed, lack of agility, some kind of bureaucratic systems that set in, and then excessive focus on short term, but not building long-term capabilities. So I'm steering the company in a different direction as I work today. I don't have the day-to-day responsibility now, so I can...
So what do you do? What's your passion? I know about birds, I know about Nandi Foundation, but you have to tell us.
No, I'm not involved in Nandi Foundation.
Okay.
That's more Satish and...
that is Satish.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I read a lot. So if you've seen my office,
yes,
the books I have. Reading is one passion. The other passion is nature. I'm part of some conservation NGOs. I'm also chairing one of them, Wildlife Trust of India. So wildlife, nature, conservation, birds. I published a book called Birds and Beliefs, which we launched here last year. And then, my family, that's all. HLF, yes, but...
So, you're also a photographer.
I'm an amateur photographer.
So, when you do your job, it's just not your office, and there are various kinds of personalities, and it's so important to find out the actual person in a legend that we see. Dr. Kumar?
Just now I started thinking, who am I? So, okay, I was born in a very small village near Coimbatore, and I'm the first in the family to pass 10th standard. So, there was nobody in the family who had gone into any formal education. So, grace of God and some work and some luck, went through all the bachelor's, master's, then PhD. Then I came for my first job for a startup biotech company in Hyderabad. So, that's very interesting because when you work for a small startup, then you end up doing multiple jobs other than your job that you're. So I came there as a scientist, but pretty much I had to do a lot of other work as well. So, because at the time it was on genetically engineered vaccine and India was not ready for it, and there were a lot of delays in regulatory approval. So, with a lot of frustration, I left the country. I went to New Zealand and then I lived there for 7 years working, and then from there I went to Australia working for Pfizer. And so many years in the corporate world. Then I came back to India in 2007, and when I joined, until I joined IL, it was just being in all these corporate ways. It was just about money and bottom line. And so after I came to this entity, because I'm from the rural background and I carry some ethics and values, this company also was able to, it allowed us to make money and as well as do a lot of social good. So it fit in with my character very well. And I was blessed to have a team. Many of them are here. They've all been. One of the biggest problems in IIL is the head of function. You don't see any addition at all. They pretty much stay. And so the people below them, it's very difficult because they all perform very well and they stay in the company for long periods of time. Other than work, as I said, we do a lot of CSR activities as a part of our work.
Yes.
And it's not that just because of a compulsion to spend that 2% of profits, we do it with real intent. Actually, one of the projects that we have taken is, as a challenge is to make Kerala rabies free. So we have started with Trivandrum. See, in history, we don't want to be seen as a vaccine maker which produce so many millions of doses. We want to be seen as a vaccine maker which has led to eradication of disease. So that's how we want to be known in history. So we do all this with real passion and intent, and we are very fortunate that we belong to National Dairy Development Board, and they don't want any of this money back. So it's left to within the organization as to how we deploy this. Majority of our activities go back, say, including whatever that we have done for the Hyderabad Literary Festival. So these are some of these activities, knowledge building platforms. Nearly about 7,500 children in government schools get to drink fortified flavored milk every day in all the government schools in rural areas. Several activities from us. That actually, it's more than, other than work, than these activities engage me in full time, and I do a bit of gardening. I do listen to music. I like Ilayaraja very much. So I do read as well. It's just a little bit of everything. And,
so do you sing?
Pardon?
Do you sing?
No, singing and dance I've never attempted.
Okay. So from Ponnati to Hyderabad, no regrets?
So far, I would say that I've been very, very blessed.
So wonderful to hear this. As we kind of wrap up the conversation, something that's very close to my heart, I have to touch upon. That's the environmental concerns and what is your take, your perspective on climate action and impact of environment of the pharmaceutical industry. And I would love to hear later. First, let's hear Mr. Prasad. Prasad, you said, I can't call you Mr. Prasad. And then about One Health, because that will wrap up everything so well.
So, I am very proud of what we have done in the environmental area. We started very early. We were the first companies in India to be zero liquid discharge, zero hazardous waste to landfill, and will be one of the first companies to be carbon neutral in India.
Oh.
We've already declared our goals. We are already water positive. We are 65% renewable energy usage now.
Oh, fantastic.
So our goal is to be 100%. And we have about 20% women in our workforce. Overall, our goal is to be gender parity by 2035. And then triple the number of women in leadership position by 2030. And we are well on the way to achieve some of these goals. On the environmental front, I can say that we are among the best in the pharmaceutical industry. We publish all our emissions, all our activities through sustainability. We've been doing it from 20 years now, more than 20 years.
Oh, fantastic.
2001 onwards. That was when we published our first sustainability report. It's now mandatory for the top 500 companies, but we've been doing it already for 20 plus years. So I think where there's a will, there is a way. And we found that this activity of taking very ambitious, aspirational targets drives a lot of innovation, also energizes the teams and motivates people. And people are very proud to work for Dr. Reddy's because it is a responsible company. I also want to say that, Anand talked about purpose. Dr. Reddy's has been also a very purpose-driven company, and this is something that binds both of us. that we are in this game to make an impact on the planet, on the world,
Absolutely.
on the patients. And this One Health is really very important, because viruses don't reside only on animals or only in humans.
Absolutely.
They jump around, zoonotic diseases are caused, and we saw the biggest pandemic in the last 100 years or even more than 100 years, which just happened. So if you are not vigilant about One Health, unless you have a healthy planet, healthy animals, healthy, all health beings being healthy, we won't be healthy. And I think that's the biggest message of One Health.
So, thank you.
As you rightly touched upon this topic of responsible manufacturing, and let me say that we do appreciate Dr. Reddy's a lot, and we try to follow in their footsteps some of these activities that they do. So at IAL also, all our plants are zero discharge facilities, and we are slowly converting into fuels that are non-fossil fuels, and we have taken this initiative, whether it be the solar or the other alternatives that are available. And predominantly, like, we emphasize on reduce, reuse, and recycle. There were some packaging that we employed which used plastic, and these we have now replaced with paper. And every year, just for that one product alone, we save about 160 tons of plastic by switching from plastic to paper. And so, wherever initiatives of such nature present, recently we held a conclave on pandemic preparedness and vaccine innovation. So this was held in Trident. And what we did is we calculated all the emissions that would happen on that day. How much would be the emissions, and then our guys calculated, our engineering team calculated, and they determined that to neutralize this we need to plant 147 trees. So we planted those 147 trees 1 week before the conclave, and then that's all. So this is the kind of enthusiasm that we try to build in our employees, and create a culture about, anything that, see, as a country, this is my biggest fear as well, 1.4 billion population. If you don't adopt all these things that we are talking on related to sustainability, we are doomed. I mean, literally, if you just waste resources one sheet of paper, I'm told that to make one sheet of paper, you consume 5 liters of water. So how many of us? So we are trying to go digital on that. I mean, we have already started work on making all the corporate functions digital first, and then because there's still some requirements of the regulatory first and compliance, that we still keep some paper for so many years. So we as a company are very serious about this. As I said, if you don't cover the sustainability, I mean, if the environment that the business is not sustainable, then where is the business going to be sustainable? So regarding One Health, though it may sound like a buzzword now, many years ago I had, since we came into the animal vaccine, human vaccines, we have been adopting this One Health approach. We make many vaccines which fall in the One Health area, which affect both animals and rabies or leptospira or brucella, many Zika, dengue. So many vaccines that we either have or develop are in the One Health space. See, any intervention in the animal side is much more cost effective. But for some reason, we allow it to, we don't intervene there. And then when it comes to the human side, then we create much more expensive ways of addressing that. See, for example, a vaccine for dog rabies would hardly be like 40-50 rupees, but a human rabies vaccine would be close to 400 rupees. So we as a vaccine manufacturer, we make both animal and human rabies vaccine. We sell some 16 or 17 million of human rabies vaccine, and we sell only 4 million of animal rabies vaccine. So I think there's some disconnect in the understanding of, for the policymakers and for the government to even know that, okay, if you intervene in the animal side of things, then it makes life much easier in the human side.
So basically what we've heard so far is how do you actually, at the helm of an organization, build a culture that promotes the right attitudes, the right vision, the right way forward. It is not about profits alone. Profit is absolutely necessary to run a business, but it is the culture of the organization that matters. Whether we heard about employees, whether we heard about the research and the work they do, we heard about sustainability, these are policies based on culture. Because there's a saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if the culture is not right, whatever strategies you do does not matter. With that, I open up the floor for questions. We have 7 minutes for questions. Yes. You have to introduce yourself and then. If there is a microphone, yes.
Hello, my name is Piyush and I have studied health administration from TISS Mumbai. Currently, I am working with Tata Trust, which is the oldest philanthropic organization, as I am part of health portfolio there. Okay. And we have done number of direct implementation projects with government for doing their national health programs. So I always had a curiosity from ground that, people are not really aware about generic drugs and branded. And there is a lot of misconception about this. So why not, big pharma companies are taking some initiative to myth the bust, because it's just not the layman, but even the well-off people, because they get claims, so they will go for the branded medicine. But as rightly said, we are the least priced drugs manufacturing companies, and we do a lot of generics which are exported. But when we see, to consume, it is hardly seen in the market. This was my first question. And second was, what we are really doing for neglected diseases and orphan drugs. Thank you.
Firstly, I think the question on brands and generics is not as straightforward as price alone. People only look at, and we were having this discussion this morning, people only look at it as a tablet. But in the tablet is so much knowledge embedded about the release of the drug, about the stability of the drug, about how it should act once it's inside your body. There's a lot of nuance there. So a white tablet is not just a white tablet. So generics in many parts of the world are very popular because the regulator there has the ability to enforce quality, enforce the safety of the product at a very high level. In India today, you go and take some random samples and analyze them. A lot of them, some of them are fake actually, some of them don't even have the ingredient, some of them have the ingredient at a much lower level, some of them fail, and you see a lot of this happening. That's where brand plays a role. Brand signals to the customer a certain level of trust. That's why patients would rather buy a branded product than a pure generic product. There is a price difference, but in the scheme of things, if a tablet is 3 rupees, 5 rupees, does it really matter to you? Yes, it's 40% higher at the 3 rupees to 5 rupees, but today's world, and if you see the incomes and everything, what portion of your income is that pill cost you? That won't change with generic drugs. The cost of treatment won't change that much. The cost of a medicine won't come down dramatically just because it's generic. The only cost that will come down is the promotion cost, and that's hardly 20-30% of the total cost. Yeah. The day the regulator can guarantee me the quality of every product in the pharmacy, I'll buy generics.
Okay.
We will stop branding.
Okay. And the second question about the orphan drugs.
So orphan drugs, by nature are very few people, and the cost of development is going to be very high. The cost of clinical development, the cost of innovation, and the cycle of development. So there are companies working on it. We ourselves have an orphan drug program, and we work. The other problem we have is the Indian regulator is still not fully developed to guide the companies on drug development relevant to India. So usually the drugs are developed for the Western world and then they come here. So this is again how government has to upskill its regulator. It cannot, and I'm glad that they've hired the drug controller from the industry. The current drug controller is, by the way, is an alumnus of Dr. Reddy's. So I'm very proud of him also. But, there's have to be a lot more trained people within the system. It can't be just untrained bureaucratic people who will run a technical function like drug regulation. Once drug regulation comes up, I think it will happen. It's evolving. All this is possible.
So what we can do is take your question offline and we'll have others to answer. Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Subhadra and I work at LV Prasad Institute. Disclaimer, a lot of people here, they support our CSR programs. So that's a disclaimer. But yes, my two questions. One is on the price list. So what we have found as a doctor who uses medication, that whenever these price lists come, there are many drugs which go off the market. For example, simple thing like tetracycline ointment, which is so good for the meibomian glands of the eye, is nowhere in the market because the price has been put up 2 rupees or 4 rupees.
Price control causes this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So there is no system that if the price is low, they will stop manufacturing. They stop manufacturing and there's no penalty on that. So all the drugs which are of a low price now, you cannot get those drugs, even if they are the best. They have low price, but they are not being manufactured.
So it's a broken system. I think we really need to work on this.
You are now saying that somebody regulatory is there in that seat, then they need to see what
Yes.
is, that it should not happen.
So he's a drug regulator,
Yeah.
not a price regulator.
No,
Price regulator is another agency,
I'm just
NPPA
saying-
like I
I'm
said.
just saying that is a pain point for us.
Sure.
There's no point, this is for public also, there's no point in you demanding very low cost drugs when they will go off the shelf. So be ready to pay at least some price.
This is a
for
problem not
important
only in
drugs.
India, it's in the
Yeah.
US also.
Yeah, so that's one point. Second is about the regulator. I think right from your early days, and you also saying about the regulator, and we also have a lot of problems with the regulators, not passing the clinical trials, not passing the drugs, making it very licensed now, all the medical devices, everything is off the shelf. We are not able to get so many very critical things in our surgery or in our medicine because it is stopped at the regulator. So I wish there was some digital system in the regulator that you put in the paper and it gets passed unless there is something important. I would request your good office to please tell the regulators
So
that we are caught in so much of regulation, bureaucracy. We are back to license permit Raj and we are not able to get critical medication.
It's much better now. If you
I
see
don't
the
want
speed
much
at which
better.
things are
I
getting
want-
done,
We have to be the best.
you should vote for the good government.
I think
You should
governments
vote for
will
your
come and go.
representative, put pressure on him.
Governments will come and
Because
go.
it's not
We
an
have
industry
to-
responsibility,
we have
it's a
to work.
political
The
responsibility.
public has to know these things and
Yes.
you have to work with these people in the helm of affairs to understand what is happening if you want the best things in your life.
Thank you. I think Dr. Subhadra, very good, very relevant comments. I know so many hands going up, I can take only 2 questions. Be brief, 2 or 3 maybe. Be very brief and no comments. Just give your question.
So I have a 2-part question. One is,
Name.
my name is Ved.
From?
I work with Apollo Pharmacy.
Okay.
So my the reason I came to this event was I wanted to understand the impact of pharmacy in Hyderabad. So what are we doing to maintain the market share, maintain the 30% and 50% like you said? What are the investments that are going into the pharma industry in Hyderabad? The second one, the R&D spends of Indian pharma is still relatively lower compared to the Western counterparts, right? Although their revenues are much lower. So, right? So that's one. So I wanted to understand what are the companies like yours, which are the biggest in the city, doing to ensure investments and create job opportunities, because we see growth in Himachal and stuff like that, where manufacturing has become a significant part.
So, firstly, I think your question on creating employment, that's not our job again. That's the government's job. Government gives incentives to move industries, and industries have to move there, they have to compete. So that's not really our job. The second thing is, what is industry doing in terms of R&D? So India is largely a generic industry. In generic industry, the R&D required is only process R&D. Innovator companies spend about 20%, 18 to 20% globally on R&D, but that's a large portion of it is clinical trials for innovative drugs. Whereas we don't do that. We are largely developing copies of existing innovative drugs at a lower cost and marketing them worldwide. Of course, there's innovation involved, there's a lot of involved, but it's a much less R&D intensity. So that's the accounts for the difference. But we are also investing in original drug research. Many companies are doing it. We are doing a lot in cancer research. And that you will see the expenditures rising on that front.
You're right that we in India spend much less as a percentage to sales than what happens in, because hardly we are in the inventive space. If something is developed somewhere, we know how to make it much more cost effective. So partly it's how traditionally we were, and the idea of bringing in new knowledge. I mean, it's more of a, it's beyond pharmacy, pharmaceutical world. It's something in the society and how we were all raised. Like, you cannot question your parents, you cannot question your teachers. No, if you did anything beyond them, then so I think much more freedom to the younger generation now than that was there when we were children. And I think, and also the academia should support. They should come. We have a lot of institutes within the country, IICT, you have the Central Drug Research Institute, but they also should play a game and come to the party and provide some good molecules which the industry can pick up. In the absence of that, then I've been asking, okay, spend on R&D, but we can't take more than 2%. We are not able to spend. It's not that there's no money involved, there's no idea involved.
This is actually very changing very slowly, and my take, because I've been running a science park, life science park in Valley for a very long time, I am seeing the changes happening in a lot of startups, and maybe in 5 to 7 years, you will see the R&D spend actually increasing. I think we have to give ourselves that more biologicals would mean a lot more R&D spend. Pricing, I'm not talking of pricing of biologicals, but R&D spend part will happen. You have a question. I think, and Somnath, you have to tell us when to wrap up.
Yeah. I'm Dr. Sarvani. I'm a consultant pathologist. I have a question. With lots of talk between mind and body connection, I wanted to know your take on the placebo effect.
We see it a lot. In clinical trials, we've seen placebo effects, which we cannot explain. So I think it is there, because even in cancer, we have seen significant placebo effect to improve the immune system, and that confounds our trials quite often. So it's there. I don't know how it works, but it works.
Maybe it's time for a branded placebo.
That would be criminal to do.
Are there any innovative procedures that you are going in effect, or accordingly to incorporate the placebo effect in the drugs or in your R&D?
No. We don't understand. When you don't understand something, you don't do it.
Exactly. I think I will support that. But there are other people who are working on the impact of placebo. But I think the pharmaceutical industry won't be doing that. There are other researchers who are working on it. So Chamdatta, this is the final session of the day. I can see this.
So there are many questions, but it would depend on how much time we have.
So, Ajay, he is, okay. Okay.
So I'm Kavita, I'm an independent journalist. So I just wanted to ask about your perspective on antibiotic resistance in the poultry industry and the dairy industry, and how they are pumping drugs into animals to produce more milk and all that. So I am not qualified.
Yes.
I'll take this question. I mean, you're worried about use of antibiotics in poultry, in milk, and so I just recently did an analysis. Okay, if you look at the whole human health pharmaceutical market, vaccines which are known to prevent diseases so that you don't use antibiotics, vaccines as a share to the whole human health pharmaceutical market is 4%. and antibiotics is 4%. So that means in human health, almost both are equally consumed. In animal health, vaccines constitute 17% of the animal health market. So that means there's more prevention in the animal health side than what is there in the human health side. So it's unfair to say that it's all in the poultry and in livestock which is being dumped. I mean, CDC has determined in the US that 1 in 3 prescriptions for antibiotic is not necessary for humans. So I think it's a combination of not just the animal, I mean, to blame them for what is happening is not entirely right. Because today, I mean, you could walk into any pharmacy in Hyderabad
And buy any
and
antibiotic.
buy any antibiotic you want, and nobody is going to take a 5-day auto driver just stops by a pharmacy. He has a sore throat. If he gave him a 5-day course, this fellow is not going to go back to the pharmacy again. He will just give him 2 tablets. Then that's where it starts, resistance. So
Yeah, I agree with him. There's a lot of misuse of antibiotics in humans. You have a viral problem, they give you an antibiotic. You have a headache, they give you an antibiotic. So there's a lot of misuse and resistance. Even pollution causes AMR, because if you manufacture antibiotics, you let them leach into the ground and they go into the food chain and create resistance. So there are multiple reasons for antimicrobial resistance. Some of it could be animal also, but in my view, humans cause more damage than animals.
Yes.
In the current geopolitical situation, I see that there is a great opportunity for pharma industry where we already have a head start compared to the others. What would be your thinking on that? How can we benefit by this? And
Yeah, very good question actually. There was something called the Biosecure Act,
Yes.
which was the US was pushing under Biden's administration, which would put sanctions on China in the sector of biologics and other related pharma products. And that would have shifted a lot of manufacturing development services into India. Unfortunately, the Biosecure Act didn't pass. Still there is a negative sentiment on China, so a lot of business is coming our way, but it'll take 2, 3, 4 years for that opportunity to materialize. The supply chains are not going to shift very fast. So in a way, it's a positive trend for the industry, especially in services, contract research, contract manufacturing services.
Hi, I'm Ritvik. I'm a management consultant.
We can't hear you.
I'm Ritvik. I'm a management consultant. So going back to the previous question which was asked, so in the era of self-medication and over-medication, and the importance of gut health has been emphasized these days. So as a society and as stakeholders of the society, how do you think we can make it more conscious that we are taking the medicines?
I would say don't follow social media advice. Go to your doctor. They are the people trained to help you properly, and don't go by what is published on Twitter, all that. There's a lot of stuff comes out there, but that's all no evidence that it works.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Joseph. I work in finance, but still I have 2 questions for you guys. The first one is, you mentioned that you had to import machines from Italy for the packaging and the final processing of the vaccines. What are some hurdles that we face in India to start the manufacturing of machines like that? So like a lot of the technology that we use for manufacturing today is still imported from the West and from China. So what can we do here right now to get better at that? So that's the first question. And B, you mentioned that prices in India are the lowest across the globe. With a focus on Asia, the Middle East and Southeast Asia, what are the hurdles that we face at that end? So I know that, if I'm not wrong, that export duty from India is a bit low, but what are the hurdles that we face at the receiving end with respect to regulations and import duty? So, yeah.
I'll answer this question on exports. Actually, we export to about 60 countries. Okay. And all those countries, they cannot afford vaccines from the developed world. So the same quality we provide from India, I mean, it's like this. This pricing, low pricing not only helps India, but also helps a lot of developing countries, including Asia, Middle East, Africa, and things like that. And related to machines, see, I mean, it is our desire to buy something local. But we do that wherever we have confidence that this machine would do its job. But in many cases, that's not the case. But India has improved a lot. I mean, for example, 40 years ago, all our fermenters which we used came from UK, and today India has, I mean, that industry has grown. Today, all bioreactors are bought from companies made in India. But still, when it comes to certain specialized equipment related to robotics and things, we are not there yet. But eventually, see, everything is dependent on a market and also the confidence that the customers have on the product. Otherwise, why would people go buy something, and you know that for everything that you import, you need to pay a lot of import duty as well. And so, we as a manufacturers would want to support something local, provided there's an environment that is created that allows local entrepreneurs to take that risk and substitute whatever is being imported.
Just to add, China is well ahead of India in every field. In biotechnology, in innovation, in robotics, in artificial intelligence, all that. So they have a better technology, I'll go to them. Why would I buy local just because it's local? You can make this the last question.
Yes, it is. My best wishes to you. The Hyderabad Literary Forum has given this particular topic to you at this event, and I am thankful to see you by this way.
Thank you.
Your all the expression will be beneficial to the audience who have come here.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
So a lovely way to end the session. Thank you, sir. And I thank Mr. D.V. Prasad and Dr. Anand Kumar for this lovely exchange. So it was not anything else than a conversation that all of us have taken part. And thank you, audience. Thank you for your patience.